I think the most important shift that a brand in retail, out of all the shifts that we speak about, is this shift from product to platform. Is this shift from the idea of transacting artifacts, transacting physical product, to creating an ecosystem, a platform that connects with consumers beyond the artifact, that connects with consumers in an emotional context, that is whether that is about creating personalization around the product, whether it's about sociability, whether it's about learning and connoisseurship, whether it's about activity, whatever the product or the category is, creating an ecosystem around that, which makes that product something unique and decommoditizes it, taking the brand out of a commodity trap. I think that is a big shift and a very important shift. Yeah, I think that is what you describe as a shift in the customer, is the thing that is driving all change, and the change is coming from a different expectations of the new customer, whether those customers are millennials, people who reach adulthood in 2000, or centennials, people who are born in 2000. You know, their mindset, their engagement with brands is extremely different. They are generally commitment phobes. They're very promiscuous when it comes to branding. They see consumerism in a very different way. They have different types of relationships with authority, with their employers, the government, and brands. And they demand one thing beyond anything else, and that is control. They demand to be in control. That ranges from controlling when and where and how they buy and engage with brands, to making sure brands and being comfortable that brands are brutally simple and brutally transparent. So they are the big shifts in the consumer, and those shifts are creating something we call retail Darwinism, which is basically these new customers' expectations are changing faster than brands can adapt. And that's the Darwinism we refer to. And I think that is changing retail, not as a cyclical thing, but structurally. There are structural changes in retail, which is what that is driving. I think what prevents companies from keeping things simple are companies that grow and grow more and create more and more systems and more structure and more departments and processes. And in some ways, what prevents companies creating very simple, brutally simple and convenient experiences is increasingly becoming further and further away from the consumer, and potentially losing relevance, and missing the point that consumers are living increasingly digitized, wired, complicated, busy lives, and they crave simplicity and convenience, and also human contact and intimacy with brands. And I think this idea of hyper convenience, offering customers the brutal simplicity in their experience, doesn't mean that the experience is unenjoyable. It doesn't mean that it's boring. It just means that it meets the needs of their lives, and that is really, really critical. And how that relates to design is that we believe that the design process, an effective design and branding process, is not what you add, is what you take away. And that's in its core, in principle, that's really important in terms of, as a designer, in terms of how you approach design. Bringing it down to first principles and keeping things brutally easy and simple. No, I think it's a movement that is in response to a very, very complicated world. and a very, very complicated life, and a life that customers have, constantly bombarded with messages, whether that's on 5, 6, 7, 10 different social media platforms, complicated in terms of the work, their life, the plethora of brands, all competing for their attention. So we're no longer competing for customers' money, we're competing for their attention. And how we get that attention is to create experiences that lead customers through a series of steps that are straightforward and simple. And the more you simplify an experience, the easier it is for customers. Whether that experience is at a shelf buying a tea, or whether it's entering a hotel room. The more complicated it is, the more customers turn away. I think the biggest underestimation that organisations make is the intrinsic promiscuity of customers to brands. The immediate sort of opportunity or the immediate propensity for customers to turn away. And many brands have been caught by surprise where there's a sudden drop-off. I think that idea that customers can become very disloyal very quickly is very interesting, and I think it's a real challenge for brands to continuously innovate, because as we say, innovation is not what you do, innovation is the way you are. To continuously innovate, to continuously surprise, to continuously create experiences that help customers discover new ideas, new experiences, and help them create more shareable, more enjoyable experiences that they can share with their social group. I think those brands will be the winners. And those brands that, additional to that, overarching that, is how they reinvent convenience. Convenience is at the core. How do you keep balance between physical, digital, local, global? I mean, physical, digital, I don't think there's a balance, because I don't think that in consumers' mind, particularly millennials and centennials, I don't think they necessarily see their relationship with brands in terms of physical and digital. This polarization or this differentiation between physical and digital will no longer exist. I think it's one thing. It's not online or offline. It's just line. It's in-line, as we say. It's customers, will be flipping from online to offline in milliseconds. So there won't be such a distinction. It's one experience. It's just got to make sure that experience is glued together, has a commonality, and is based on the same principles and the same core truism of the brand's authenticity. And very, very importantly, it's how a brand structures itself to ensure that in the customer's eyes, it is seen as one organisation and one experience. Those who silo those two things, those online, offline, from their business model to their incentives to their staff to their experience of the customers, won't be here in the next 3 or 4 years. They won't exist, because that's not what customers expect. What can big organisations learn from startups? So they can learn certainly agility. They can learn the idea of being fresh, being nimble, being entrepreneurial. They can learn from the idea of startups creating a different type of working experience to attract millennials, a working structure that's not so rigid and not so siloed, and gives the impression and the idea that for their staff that there's less and less distinction, and there's a blurring of the line between work and leisure and work and play. Millennials increasingly do not distinguish between the times they work and the times they play. They constantly work at home and rest at work. They eats in restaurants and they eat at work. They work in restaurants and they work at work, you know. So this blurring of the lines between work and leisure, what we call bleisure, the blurring of the lines between business and leisure, is a massive development and trend in the way millennials and centennials behave and how they expect to engage with brands in startups, but also that can be, you know, larger customers, larger organisations can learn definitely from that. But there's also lots of bad things about startups which they should not learn from, and there's the idea of lack of structure and uncertainty, of course, are real challenges. I did visit Albert Heijn and some of its competitors, albeit for one afternoon, a few hours. So by no means did I carry out an analytical and scientific audit by any means. But my first impressions that some of Albert Heijn's competitors, Jumbo particularly, seem to be a much brighter, more cheerful, more engaging, more exciting kind of environment and shopping experience. I think its navigation and shoppability is easier. I think Markt and Landmark, I think it's called, whether they are competitors or not, a different scale they are, I know, but they are more interesting in storytelling. I think the staff engagement was better, albeit I didn't have a lot of engagement with Albert Heijn staff. But interestingly, when I went to Markt, both stores were empty. So I'm not sure commercially how they're doing. I don't make any apologies for, even though I'm a designer, for being brutally commercial, and I absolutely prioritize commercial success. And if that's not the case, then no amount of design and brand strategy is worth it. So that's really key. So the priority is getting shoppability and commercial success, whatever the design idea is. I think my impression of Albert Heijn is that there are some very basic retail issues that could be addressed. Basic issues around navigation, around sight lines, around change of pace, around navigability, both horizontally and vertically, around illumination, around materials. There seems to be quite a dull, kind of dark environment, which I didn't find inspiring. But I do emphasise this was only first impression. There must be lots of reasons for these things, and who am I to tell Albert Heijn anything about retail? I've been in retail for more years than I've been born, so they're not necessarily going to learn anything from me, but they're my humble opinions as a humble designer, retail designer. But yeah, I think there are many opportunities in Albert Heijn to make very quick, low capital cost changes that could impact the shoppability and engagement with customers. And it'd be really interesting to explore those. And maybe after analysing and auditing the stores, I'll change my mind. Maybe I've missed something. Most probably, or most likely I have missed a lot because I haven't been there very often or very long. But that would be a great thing to do. What if I was the CEO of Albert Heijn? That is the most unfair question that you've put me on the spot that I can deal with. And with the danger of upsetting Walter or even exciting him, I don't know. What would I do? Beyond getting Portland back, what I would do is I would identify, do a very critical customer experience audit, customer journey audit, and identify 1,000 small things. 1,000 small things to improve. With the criteria that nothing must cost a lot of money. You know, 1,000 small basic things, hygiene things. What can we improve? And create from that what we call a now, next, future strategy. Look at every category and every part of the journey, put that in a matrix, every touch point, and look at how we can create a now strategy, a next strategy 2 years, and a future strategy 4 to 5 years. That's the first step, and that's what I would do. And I've made some immediate changes. And in parallel to that, I would take each category, decide on that category how we create a great experience for the basics, basic shopping, the locate model, locate mission, great prices, easy shopping, brutal simplicity, convenient shopping, and within each category, where do we deliver the specialness? What Ibrahim talked about, what I understand, that specialness, how do we deliver it in each of the categories and incubate new ideas at a very low scale to test before risking too much, test those ideas, failed successfully, but learn. And my message is, do and learn, don't wait and see, because if you want to be 100% sure, you'll be 100% late. And I think that is a mantra which is really critical. Do and learn. Try ideas, incubate ideas, and move forward. If they work, you test them, implement them. I don't want to identify one breakthrough, but what I would identify is one breakthrough philosophy. And the breakthrough philosophy to become a brand that shifts from transaction to interaction and from interaction to intimacy, the two shifts that we talk about a lot, is to start thinking about new metrics, start thinking about new success criteria, new types of engagement with the customer, not just about sales per square meter, but start measuring ideas per square meter, discovery per square meter, surprise per square meter, smiles per square meter, senses per square meter. How many surprises do you have for a customer if they visit 1 week to the next week? How many ideas are you giving them? How much interaction is there per square meter? How many senses do you have per square meter? What does your bread category smell like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Start measuring your customer experience around different types of metrics. That's what will lead to the one thing that makes customers smile, and smile leads to love. And the one thing that makes customers smile is serendipity, happy coincidences. The clue is in the word happy. Happy coincidences. How do you create a happy coincidence, a surprise, discovery in a grocer? That is with 900 stores. It's easy to say, it's a real challenge. I don't make 1 minute do I say that's easy. It isn't easy, it's a challenge, but it needs to be addressed and it needs to be delivered. If you really authentically say you want to be a love brand, it's the easiest thing to say. Are you going to deliver it? Is it going to be delivered? And very importantly, it doesn't matter what Albert Heijn says. All that matters is what customers say. Customers will define a brand, not you, not Albert Heijn, not me. And authentically, if we want customers to love our brand, we've got to deliver absolutely the things that they didn't expect. And that isn't about price only. The things they didn't expect, those special moments, those special indulgences, those small moments of indulgence. If I was going to say, crystallize in one statement, how do you make a situation where customers love you, is give them the gift of time. Create hyper convenient, simple, easy shopping for basics and give them the gift of time to have specialness. And in order to give them the gift of time to create special experiences that really make them love you, you've got to shift your business from a space as a retailer to a place as a host. How do you host those experiences? And then we can talk for ages and ages and hours is how do you become a host and how does that affect training and recruitment and people and branding and everything else. As I say, these things are easy to say, but they're at the core, the truism of success in retail. The do-nothing strategy does not exist. It's not an option. You do or you fail. There's only two types of business, retail business in this world, the quick and the dead. And you're going to be either quick or you're going to be dead. And I think that's really, really critical. In retail or in a woodland?
Well, it could be both, but for you personally?
So is this a question, a personal question or a professional one?
A professional one.
A professional one, okay. In retail, wow. I had a couple recently because we run quite a lot of retail safaris, so we see a lot of retail, and some are really surprising and beautiful. One particular one was Tesla. I think the Tesla store is wonderful. About personalization. Okay, that's a different level of brand, but that's really interesting. I think Lush experience was breathtaking. I'd go that far. There's a tea shop called T2. Again, is really interesting. I think I've had some really great experiences in camper stores. I've had some really great experiences online. Patagonia website is really amazing. Lots of stories. I have wonderful experiences on eBay all the time. I'm addicted to eBay, and I'm constantly amazed the things that you can do and buy on eBay and discover on eBay. Certainly, they're very, very interesting. I've had some really interesting encounters in Lidl. I go there regularly, particularly for the non-food, and I'm pleasantly surprised constantly of the unusual things they have and the surprise they create in their offer, particularly on non-food and some of the food items as well. An instance is some great bread, some great cheese, surprisingly good wine. So yeah, I'm often pleasantly surprised. And most of the brands that we go to safaris, I'm a customer of as well, at a personal level. Definitely, I can tell you one experience that I was absolutely shocked at the disappointment I had, and that was a very, very big purchase. I bought a new car, and I don't buy a new car every day, believe me, and it's not very often I buy a new car, and I spent a lot of money, and I expected it to be very, very special, and I have had better experiences buying a pair of shoes, and that was a big shock and a big surprise. I wouldn't go that far because I'm fanatical about the brand. The brand is Land Rover, and I have a Land Rover Defender, so I'm fanatical about that brand, and I've always had Defenders. But that isn't the point. The point being the experience and for the money you spend, the experience from the lead up to the communication, to the engagement, to the actual transaction and the delivery, and was horrendous. In terms of customer care, in terms of customer engagement, in terms of making the customer feel special. They've just spent a lot of money. I feel much more special sometimes, as I say, buying a pair of shoes or buying a watch or dare I say, either buying some cheese, which is, I cannot believe some car retailers will survive in the future against some more enlightened brands. Such as BMW, for instance, such as Tesla, Audi.
Is the car industry very different from the retail industry in that sense? Or
No, I think that can be general. I think I recently bought quite an expensive suitcase, and it was terrible, the experience. I went into the store and there wasn't even a table to put the suitcase on to look at it at the level you need to look at it, as opposed to on the floor. No one could describe to me why this suitcase was so expensive. Is it the materials? Is it the wheels? Maybe they should be describing to me how to pack. Maybe suitcase retailers or bag retailers should not talk about just selling the artifact, just selling the product, which is product, but maybe platform. Telling me how to pack, explain to me best ways to pack for one night, for 2 nights, for 3 nights. In fact, we worked on a luggage brand, and we developed this idea of packology and bagology, and how you use the bag story around what role does the bag play in people's lives. So you can upsell, if you like, a customer from buying one bag to buying 3 bags, depending on what their mission is, how many nights they're going to stay and what different needs. I mean, this is not a discussion about bags, but the point I'm making is that even in the bag category, there's a big opportunity to get into platform.
Terribly so.
Well, to start off, again, this is some thinking or some thoughts I had with not too much consideration. So, as I said, I've not been to this Albert Heijn store for long or done any kind of analysis. But my immediate kind of gut reaction was that I felt the brand, in the terms of the experience and the environment, was very masculine, and is a very paternal brand. And I think the opportunity is to look at that brand and shift it to become more feminine in terms of having more feminine traits. Not necessarily just because most of the customers are women or families, but I think a brand, the new paradigm for millennials and the way we behave is the feminization of everything. I think the softer, more involving, more collaborative, more participatory emphasis on experience lends itself to a femininity, and I think brands generally, the world generally, is becoming more feminine. Why is that? Because I think the consumers demand more and more sociability, more and more collaboration, more and more sharing, more and more involvement, and these are all feminine traits. They're all feminine traits, you know. So shifting from communications that's instructional, monologue, to something that's conversational. Imagine that. That's more feminine. It's more social. Things that are fixed architecturally, shops that are just fixed, monolithic, to shops that are flexible and programmed and what we call soft space. I don't mean soft in a patronising way for women. I'm talking about softness in terms of programmability. Moving away from things that are industrial and very slick and perfect and all intricately detailed, if you like, to things that are more human and more imperfect and warmer and more intimate, if you like. When I say like environments and design, shifting from technical to emotional relationships, sort of brand relationships are becoming more emotional. Shopping being more social, that's a female trait. Shopping being less about communication and advertising, more about connection. And very, very importantly, retailers shifting from being a supplier, a trader, to being a host, extremely feminine trait. And retailers being less of a group and more of a community. Female traits are about community, social communities, community of families. Female traits are about the glue that hold families together, the nurturing. So these are all traits that I believe brands should take on to respond to the new millennial, the blurring of the sexes. There's more of a blurring of the sexes. This idea of extreme feminine and extreme masculine, there's a blurring. Yeah. I'm not talking about necessarily just people, I'm talking about the world really, generally. I hesitate to comment on Albert Heijn's service to customer and whether they do it great or not, because I'm not a customer, because I don't live in Holland, and also I haven't audited, so it's very unfair to say that. I can only make comment on my immediate impression of the environment and the journey, the shopping journey, if you like. So it may well be that customers have fantastic experiences, and God willing they do. I hope they do, and I think that would be very, very valuable for me and potentially even Albert Heijn to analyse that in more depth and conclude thereafter. A piece of advice, who am I to give advice to Albert Heijn? I mean, but from my point of view, from our point of view as a business, I think the critical thing is to begin to create an experience that really future-proofs the business, future-proofs the experience. Be future-ready. Shift from being what used to be great, which is a responsive business, to being a predictive business. Try to predict what customers are going to want, how they're going to behave, what their expectations are. And that's not just through research, that is part of it, but by trying, testing, and seeing how we could surprise customers. And I think the overall aim, the overall objective is make a business that's future ready. Make an offer, an experience, a customer experience that's future ready. If there's a broad kind of message, I think that could be it. And I would dearly love to be part of that journey and to advise wherever Albert Heijn believe we can add some value.